What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to be discussing even more new changes in iOS 18.5. We're going to discuss new details on the iPhone 17 Air and why it might be a pretty big hit. We're going to talk about the new color coming to the iPhone 17 Pros, fresh new iOS and iPadOS 19 leaks, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to continue staying updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and check out the Apple Den newsletter, along with the Discord server if you want to continue the conversation. Those links are down below. Okay, so this week we did get one new round of software updates. So we did see iOS 18.5 Beta 3 roll out to beta testers, and of course we did get all of the other operating systems third beta as well, like macOS and watchOS and so on. Now, this update was so insignificant that I did not even make a video here on the channel. As you guys may have seen, I did post a community post here on the channel. If you guys are not aware, if you go to my channel and go to posts, you can see those community posts right there. So I did inform you guys about the updates over there, but I did not want to make an 8-minute video talking about stuff that you guys already know about. There's really nothing to talk about with that update, so I didn't want to waste your time and just regurgitate the same info over and over again. So that is what we saw with iOS 18.5 Beta 3. It's also been performing about the same as Beta 2. I've been running it on my main device over here since it came out, and I've really not been able to tell any difference from Beta 2 to Beta 3, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's running just fine. May as well talk about the performance and battery life here as well. You know, you can see I did run a fresh Geekbench score here just today, 3520 single core, 8698 on the multi-core, very similar to what we saw on previous betas, even close to Beta 1. So not a huge difference really on any of these iOS 18.5 betas, but in terms of Beta 3, really no forward-facing features. So I really haven't noticed any difference with the battery life either. Battery life has been great for me on 18.5. Seems like a lot of you guys have had no issues with battery life in 18.5. It seems like a big drop-off. I've noticed a big drop-off in my comments of people having battery issues after 18.4 was released. So that's hopefully a good sign, and I've really had no issues with battery life on 18.5, Beta 2, or Beta 3. And if you are not currently running the betas, which I don't blame you, there's really not a big incentive to, get on the beta train at this point. But if you are on the public releases right now, 18.4.1 is still the latest software update. You are up to date. There was no new public software released this week, and there's really nothing new to talk about with 18.4.1. We've already talked about all of those details in the past. Okay, so let's move on to some more exciting topics that happened this week. So first off, I have a question for you guys related to Apple Intelligence. Would you pay a monthly fee to access Apple Intelligence on your iPhone, your iPad, and your Mac? It doesn't have to be necessarily what's the suite right now, but if Apple Intelligence became much better in the future, would you eventually pay money to use Apple Intelligence on a monthly basis? And the reason I asked that is because this week we did see a new survey come out, the results from a survey from Morgan Stanley, where they asked, about 3,300 people here in the US if they would pay for Apple Intelligence, and 1 in 2 people that were surveyed said that they were willing to pay at least $10 a month for Apple Intelligence. And keep in mind, Morgan Stanley said that the total sample, for this survey, it represents the general population in the US in terms of age, gender, and region. So it's pretty accurate. So it looks like 22% of those surveyed said that they would pay $15 or more per month for Apple Intelligence. And then 30% said that they'd pay between $10 and $15 a month. 17% said they'd pay between $5 and $10 a month. 11% said less than $5 a month. 14% said that they would not be willing to pay for Apple Intelligence at all. And then 6% said that they don't know and it's a bit too early to tell. So I find that very interesting to read. I'm very surprised, honestly, at this point that so many people are willing to pay for Apple Intelligence, especially when it's not kind of at its peak yet. I guess, these people might have wishful thinking and thinking in the future if Apple does charge for it, it might be worth it, but I don't like thinking that way. I like thinking with what we have right now. And right now, in my opinion, I personally would not pay for Apple Intelligence. Like once we get the Siri upgrades and things like that, maybe. But right now, I don't know. I don't really see myself spending any money per month. Obviously, I will because of YouTube. But if I was an average consumer, I'd have a hard time coughing up any amount of money per month for Apple Intelligence in its current state. But I have to say, I am optimistic about, App Intent and Siri and the LLM Siri in the future and things like that. That's when I can see myself spending some some money, as an average consumer, maybe a little bit above average, I guess. People that watch these videos, I would probably spend a little bit of money per month to access those features. Also, this week was the 10th anniversary of the Apple Watch, which means it was also Global Close Your Rings Day. Global Close Your Rings Day is on the anniversary of when the Apple Watch first launched, and that was on the 24th, April 24th right there. So if you closed all 3 of your rings, which you can see I did, you will get this limited edition award. So this is what it looks like. And of course, I did go ahead and get mine, and that's what it looks like on the Apple Watch once you do close it. Now, also, if you go into the Apple Store, you will get a limited edition pin, as you can see right here. I just had to go to the back to the pickup section and ask them for the Close Your Rings pin, and they just gave it to me. They didn't even need to see that I actually completed all my rings for that day. So pretty cool. The Apple Sports app also got another update this week. So you can see version 2.7, and it says share games with friends through messages and social so everyone can follow the action. But as you guys know, if you watched last week's episode of Apple Weekly, that's actually not new as of 2 days ago. That was, hitting the Apple Sports app over the air last week. So for some reason, they put that in here as a new feature in 2.7, but it was working prior to that as well, as we discussed. However, we did see a couple of new leagues added to the Apple Sports app, including the Association of Tennis Professionals and Women's Tennis Association. So if you do watch tennis, those have now been added to the Apple Sports application. Also this week, we saw a pretty significant app release from Instagram. So the Edits application has finally been released, and this is basically Meta or Instagram's response to CapCut. So there's been a lot of creators saying that the Edits application can almost replace the CapCut application. Not quite. CapCut still has quite a few awesome features, but this is a kind of native video editor for short form videos, and it's pretty impressive, I have to say. As somebody who doesn't really do a lot of editing for my short form, it's quite impressive. So if you load up your video in here, you can see at the bottom, you have your audio, your text, your voice, your captions, your overlay, all of that. And if you select this, you do get the option to split very easily. So if we go right here and go to split, it will split that clip, and you can speed it up with this little slider right here to speed up that clip or slow it down. You have your adjustments right here for the color. You have your filters, you have a green screen, you have the effects, you have voice effects as well. So some of these effects are actually really nice. I'm surprised they run so well, on the iPhone. You have extract audio, mirror, you have slip, duplicate. It's pretty, it's a pretty solid application, I have to say. If you are somebody who does a lot of short form videos, or if you want to get into short form videos, check out the Edits application. It's quite impressive, especially if you don't always want to get on Final Cut Pro on your computer to do all of that editing. It's much easier to do it here in the app. And in my opinion, the best part about this is the fact that you have analytics now inside of this application. So for your Reels. So basically, if you post Instagram Reels, you now have this built-in kind of dedicated section for analytics for your Reels, which I find to be really awesome. You can see your views, your reach, your net followers, your likes, comments, all of that right there. And you can get pretty detailed with these specific Reels in terms of latest views and all of that. It's pretty neat. Definitely check it out if you are somebody into Instagram Reels. Now, also this week, we saw YouTube announce that they are testing AI summaries in search results. So if you search for something and you go down here, you might start to see AI kind of summaries or overviews about a video before you even click on it. So I'm not currently seeing those on my device, at least not on mobile, but this is something that you might start seeing pretty soon. But that's not all for this week, because we also saw a massive update for the Perplexity application on the iPhone, because this does everything, pretty much everything that I wish Siri would do. So the Perplexity application, this is an AI application that has a voice mode, a voice assistant that can now do like system-wide actions from the Perplexity application. So let me show you what I mean. If I go into the voice assistant right here, check this out. Let it connect first. Set a reminder for 5:30 p.m. tonight for Capital Grille dinner with 5 friends. And if we go into the reminders application, there we go. It shows that, reminder right there. Now, it's not perfect, but it's able to do what I've wished Siri could do for a very long time now. And it's not even just that. There's a lot more you can do. I can even keep talking to it while I'm in other applications. Like if I go right here, let me unmute this actually. So we're going to go into unmute, and we're going to go back here, and I'll just start talking. Set another reminder for shoot a video tonight at 8 p.m. Boom, done. It shows shoot a video right there. And if you go ahead and tap on this, it doesn't show the time exactly. Like I said, it's not perfect, but the fact it's able to do that is amazing, especially when you're in other applications and you can just talk to this voice assistant, which always lives up there in the dynamic island. And you can just tell it to schedule things for you. You could tell it to do things like draft and send an email. You can send a message or make a call. You can control your smart home devices. You can book an Uber. You can do things like, answer general questions. You can make reservations via booking sites. There's so much you can do from this, Perplexity assistant now. It's amazing. Like, I'm really tempted to use this as my main kind of shortcuts on my home screen now. So if you go ahead and add allow right here, we go ahead to customize this. We're just going to actually do that right now. We're going to get rid of this and we're going to add Perplexity into there. And we'll just do smart voice mode because that's what we do to access this. And we'll tap on done. So now we can always access that from our lock screen right there, or just pull down right here and access it if we want to. And again, it lives up there in the dynamic island. So you can continually keep talking to it and have it do things for you kind of system wide and go into other applications and do things for you. And by the way, if you're wondering, Perplexity does use ChatGPT, the latest, 4.1, and it also uses Gemini 2.5 Pro and others. So it does have access to all of those, major models that you would like. And of course, this does require an internet connection to work, and it is free. So I've not paid anything and it is free. I'm not really sure how long that goes on for. I'm sure you will hit a limit and then you may be prompted to upgrade to Perplexity Pro, but it is free to use, at least with some limitations. Okay, so we have to talk about the new iOS and iPadOS 19 rumors that we saw this week, because these are pretty interesting. And this comes from Majin Buu. So he said that iOS 19 might add Stage Manager support to all USB-C iPhones, and it could also support external displays. And then for iPadOS 19, he said that this may introduce a macOS style menu bar and Stage Manager 2.0 with the Magic Keyboard. So he says that on iPadOS 19, when you connect your iPad to the Magic Keyboard, the interface will adapt to show a menu bar at the top, just like on macOS, which turns the iPad into a much more laptop-like experience, which we did kind of hear this from Mark Gurman already, saying it's going to be more like a macOS experience. So this does seem pretty credible. And then he says another key update is Stage Manager 2.0, an enhanced multitasking mode that activates automatically when the keyboard is attached. It will make managing apps and windows smoother and more productive than ever. And as far as iOS 19 goes, he says that iPhones with USB-C will support external displays, offering a Stage Manager-like interface. While not a full desktop mode, it will allow users to extend their screen space, which is great for presentations, editing, or enhanced viewing. So that is pretty interesting. It's not really too far out from what we've already heard before from Mark Gurman, but the more we hear this, the more I think it's actually going to happen, at least something similar to what we're hearing. So it looks like iPadOS might become more like macOS, which a lot of people are like, why? We don't really want that, but it'll be interesting to see how this actually pans out. Okay, so let's bring it back to present time here, because we need to talk about what to expect next from Apple, because next up is going to be iOS 18.5 Beta 4. So I do think we're going to see a Beta 4 before the RC, and then we'll see the final release of iOS 18.5. So I would expect to see Beta 4 next week on the week of April 28th. Now, hopefully that update is a little bit more significant so I can make a video for you guys on it. But if not, again, I will do another community post. That way I don't waste your time on that. So if you don't think it's wasting your time, by the way, just let me know. That's just how I interpret it, because I would just be regurgitating the same info. But if that's not how you view it, just let me know in a comment. I'm just really curious to know what you guys think about that. But anyways, the RC should come on the week of May 5th, and then we should see the final release of iOS 18.5 on the week of May 12th, most likely right there on May 12th, since Apple does typically release public software on Mondays. And then after that, we should start seeing the iOS 18.6 betas, which again, just like 18.5, it's going to be very minor. I mean, very, very minor for a 0.6 update, because of course, all eyes are going to be on June 9th for WWDC, when we're going to see iOS 19, iPadOS 19, and all the other major software updates. The first beta will be released right there on June 9th. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with the iPhone 17 Air, because this week we saw some new kind of dummy units that were released, and also Unbox Therapy made a big video on the iPhone 17 Air, and this thing looks amazing. It's almost as thin as the buttons on the side. I mean, those buttons barely fit on there because it's such a thin frame. So these were posted over on X by Sonny Dixon. He did also provide the dummy units for some of those YouTubers that you see right there. And just look at that thing. The iPhone 17 Air, if it's actually that thin, is going to be quite impressive. Now, the 17 Air is coming in a bit bigger than people expected at 6.6 inches. I know some rumors earlier were saying 6.5 inches, even though it was supposed to be like 6.8 earlier on, or 6.7. Apple did have to make it a little bit smaller than they wanted to, but it's not going to be quite as small as some of the earlier rumors said. So it looks like it's going to be somewhere around that 6.6 inch size. And it looks like Apple will have to put just a single camera on the back in order to kind of, keep that space for the battery, because it's such a small amount of real estate. There's really not a lot of room to fit much more than one camera if we want to have even decent battery life. That's been another thing I've been seeing people talk about, that the battery life is just going to be terrible on the iPhone 17 Air, but I don't think it will be. I think Apple is doing something pretty special with the 17 Air, where it's going to get pretty decent battery life along with being a big kind of display, at least bigger than the base model. So we'll have to wait and see on that iPhone 17 Air, but I think that's going to be a hit. And I cannot wait for the bend test videos, because those videos of people bending the iPhone 17 Air are going to be all over the place the day that device releases. So I can't wait. I'm pretty excited for a new model of iPhone to come out. It's not very often that we see that, aside from the E model, which that's a little bit different. This is more like a flagship type of new model. So I'm excited for it. What do you guys think? However, if you're somebody who's more into the Pro and Pro Max iPhones, like the top of the line iPhones, you might be pleased to know that the new color coming this year could be the sky blue color that we saw with the MacBook Air. So this comes from Majin Buu. He posted this on his website, and he said that sources close to the supply chain confirm that several iPhone 17 Pro prototypes have been made in various colors, with sky blue currently the front runner. And he says it looks even more stunning than the much loved Sierra blue of the iPhone 13 Pro, with a brightness and refinement that makes it irresistible. So if that is actually true, which I guess this is all kind of just personal preference anyways, if you think it's better, but to me, Sierra blue is still to this day, I think, top 2 of my favorite iPhone Pro color. Sierra blue was my favorite color at the time, and for many years after that. I can't even think of anything that's better than that actually right now. So if this is better than Sierra blue, I'm very excited for the 17 Pro, especially if it's going to have that new camera layout on the back. So this year, just all around with the Air, the new color, the new camera system on the back, it's going to be a very interesting year for the iPhones, which is good because we really haven't seen that for a few years now. Now, speaking of future iPhones, we have to talk about what Apple is doing with iPhones that are coming to the US because of the whole, tariffs with China. Because we're now hearing from the Financial Times, who put out this report. They said that Apple plans to source all US-bound iPhones from India by 2026. So in this report, they said that Apple is accelerating its manufacturing shift away from China and plans to assemble all US-bound iPhones in India by the end of 2026. So they said that the target would mean doubling the iPhone output in India after almost 2 decades in which Apple spent heavily in China to create a world-beating production line that powered its rise into the $3 trillion tech giant. So Apple has been producing some iPhones in India already, but it seems like there's going to be a big shift and put a lot more, on the plate for India as opposed to China. So we're not really sure if there's going to be a difference in quality. That will be something to kind of pay attention to see if we do notice a difference, but that is something to expect by the end of 2026. Now, we also need to talk about Apple Intelligence moving forward, because we saw from a new report from Mark Gurman this week that the Siri management team finally got its overhaul after the Apple Intelligence failure. So Gurman said this: Mike Rockwell, which is the head of engineering for Siri, is replacing much of Siri's leadership with lieutenants from his Vision Pro software group. He's also restructuring teams related to speech, understanding, performance, and user experience. And then Vision Pro engineering lead Ranjit Desai will be in charge of much of Siri's engineering, including the underlying platform and systems groups. And there were also some other moves in there as well, but it's really interesting to see this kind of shift with Apple in terms of these teams. It seems like Apple is very, very keen on getting Apple Intelligence to the level where we all want it to be. Apple knows that Apple Intelligence is a failure right now. They're working, I'm sure, day in and day out trying to make this right and trying to improve this, which explains the whole shift in leadership, which is really impressive. You don't really see that often from Apple. So let's just hope that the next couple of years are good for Apple Intelligence and Siri, because At this point, there's really not much to lose. I mean, everybody's so down on Apple. This is the perfect time for them to just blow us away over the next couple of years. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a woman in North Carolina who owns a cleaning company got an alert on her iPhone that an unknown AirTag had been tracking her for over 7 hours from Louisburg to Raleigh and all the way back. She said that the AirTag had been following her from the moment she left work at 1:23 p.m., stopping when she parked and then starting again once she left. Now, normally Apple has a system in place when you get that unknown AirTag alert where you can tap it, you can view a map of the device's movements and play a sound to help you find that AirTag physically. But when the woman tried to do that, and when she tried to make a sound from the AirTag, she didn't hear anything. She said that she went back out to her car, tried over and over to locate it, but couldn't hear anything. She eventually hired a mechanic to tear apart her vehicle to look for this AirTag, but even he could not find it. And according to experts from a local cybersecurity firm, this is likely another case of a criminal disabling the AirTag speakers to stop the victims from hearing the sound that's supposed to help them find it. Now, unfortunately, there is no good ending here because it seems like the stalker may have caught on to her and kind of knew that she was suspicious, so he took it off and just moved on to another victim. But it's, you know, it's important to know and just always important to be aware of your surroundings and also take those alerts seriously on your iPhone if you get that unknown tracking or that unknown AirTag alert. And I really can't wait for the AirTag 2 to come out because that's going to be tamper-proof, apparently. That's what the rumors are saying, and we should see that at some point this year. Anyways, guys, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Again, make sure you subscribe so you stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Apple. Check out the newsletter and check out the Discord. Those are also linked down near the top of the description down below. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.